Hello and welcome, I'm Olas Garjuk and you're watching Head to Head with UATV. Russia plans to impose a continuous order monitoring in the Black Sea region. It is for this purpose that the Russian Defense Ministry recently deployed drones to Crimea to perform reconnaissance and patrol missions around the temporarily occupied peninsula. Russia's tighter grip is also likely to be directly related to restrictions imposed by Russia at the end of July on almost a quarter of the Black Sea area, thereby blocking shipping routes to Bulgaria, Georgia, Romania, and Ukraine. To talk more about the current situation and the Black Sea, we welcome to our studio today Captain Andriy Ryzhenko, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Ukrainian Navy for Euro-Atlantic Integration. Hello and thank you for being with us today.
Hello, thanks for inviting.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you in the studio. So along the coast of the Sea of Azov and the temporarily occupied territory in the Donetsk region, Russian-led forces are building up mine explosive barriers. So we are starting with the Sea of Azov. What is the purpose of this?
Yeah, first of all, yeah, it's really true, and it was a number of announcements via Ministry of Defense of Ukraine about this, and we need to split this mine threat on a shore threat and a sea threat. Speaking about the shore threat, it's I would like to say it's separatists and Russian troops they widely using mines in order to block our troops. And but what is a big danger and why this anti-personnel mines was prohibited by Ottawa Convention in 1997? Because they're causing a lot of damages and casualties among civilian population.
Right, civilians cannot really pass through the territory.
Yeah, because now in our days, actually, I mean, both sides even don't know exact coordinates of the mines because they're just sweeping in air by using MLRS, multi-launcher rocket system, and air assets. Speaking about sea, particularly Sea of Azov. Sea of Azov from Turkish Azov, it means shallow. Maximum depth of this sea 14 meters. It means it's excellent area to use mines. And mines, it's a cheap and very
effective, let's say.
Cheap and very effective weapon in order to block any shipping for any nations. And using this special status of Sea of Azov as internal waters of Russia and Ukraine, Russians physically can approach to Ukrainian coastline and in a hidden way put mines on a seabed.
So basically what they're trying to do is to occupy the whole Sea of Azov. Is it true or not?
Yeah, they would like to take control, I mean, to project power, as we say in our terminology. Project power, this mine can be deployed, they can be sleeping until a certain period of time, but in case of necessity, they can be activated and they can block all shipping, military or civilian. And for this purpose, we are building our mine countermeasures capabilities. We are building capacities in order to identify these mines and neutralize it.
Okay, this is a very important issue. I would like to ask you, what are we building and what actions does Ukraine take in order to prevent these casualties among civilians by stepping on just an exposed mine? Because as far as international reports say, Ukraine is one of the top territories in the world, the most mined territories in the world. Yeah, and this is very dangerous.
Yeah, I will speak about the maritime portion of this issue, of this problem.
Okay.
You know, until before 2014, we haven't have any Navy installations on the coast of Sea of Azov. It's actually historically was motivated from Soviet time. Since occupation of Crimea, we start to build our capability on Sea of Azov coast. You know, recently it was decided to build a naval base in Berdyansk. And one of the objectives of this base, of the units which will be based on the base, will be protection of the harbors and sea roads. We will have a special units which will be able to identify these mines using a special equipment and neutralize them. This our attempts now on initial stage, but some of the activities already done, and we also request international assistance for this, and we know that our partners from different NATO nations actually responding to this request, and in a couple of months there will be some activity in the city of Berdyansk regarding building of these capabilities. Actually, I cannot say you details, but it will be like a mobile and quick response units deployed on the main ports of Azov Sea like Berdyansk and Mariupol, and these units will be able to to identify and neutralize sea mines located on a bottom of the sea. Mostly our area of concerns primarily will be approaches to the port of Berdyansk and Mariupol, and also international traffic roads toward Ukrainian ports.
So are these some innovative military technologies that are coming to Ukraine?
we thanks to our partners, we're using innovative military technologies. You know, this until 2014 we used mostly World War II technologies, minesweeping.
Yeah, because there was no need to
but
maybe to implement something else.
Yeah, but technology also develops quite quickly,
quite rapidly, right?
And now we give a priority to the unmanned vehicles, which capable to identify mines, and later on, depending on the danger, we will see how we'll neutralize it.
If we're talking about unmanned vehicles, let's get back to my introduction about Russia wants to keep an order in the Black Sea. So let's shift from the Azov Sea onto the Black Sea topic. So the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation purchased 4 PAUS drones for Crimea, and they want to patrol the occupied peninsula. How dangerous are these actions?
Yeah, this drones, they named the forepost. It was designed in Russia on a technologies which they actually took from Israel. They bought a number of the Israeli-built UAVs, and later on they built a replica in Russia. This is a reconnaissance UAV. They need this UAV in order to extend engagement of the anti-ship missiles, which based on the Crimea Peninsula, and also ships which based on the Black Sea Fleet ships. These UAVs can be deployed around 200-300 kilometers off coast of Crimea Peninsula, and they can provide
pretty far distance.
Yeah, and they can. Yeah, it's from Odessa to Sevastopol, less than 300 kilometers, I would say. They can cover all of the western part of Black Sea, and they can go quite extensively toward the Bosporus Strait. And this will give them opportunity to identify targets, contact of interest, and provide targeting against this. And they can stay in the air around 10 to 12 hours. And it's,
which is a long time.
It's quite a long time, and it's much cheaper than to use maritime patrol aviation, which normally is supposed to be used. Once this UAV costs approximately $5 million.
$5 million per one UAV?
Yeah, but if you go to the MPA, maritime patrol aircraft, it can cost from 50 to few hundred $100 million. It means 1 or 2 level more expensive. It's very expensive, yeah.
These are unrealistic prices, but of course
but the prices
we know
of
that
the market.
war costs a lot of money and a lot of sorrow.
And ideas they will put it in the integrated system which located in Crimea Peninsula, and these UAVs will let them to extend range of the anti-ship missiles significantly.
So basically they will monitor everything what's going on in the Black Sea pretty
yes,
much.
They will be able to monitor.
But Ukraine recently signed this deal with the Turkish Baykar Defense company to start making these UAVs also, but with a 500-kilometer range. I do know that we don't have any access to Crimea right now because it is occupied by, and we're not going to have this arm race with Russia. It's much more important just to solve, to win the war and basically to restore the territorial integrity. But how progressive is Ukraine in gaining these new armament?
You see, speaking about these UAVs which you just mentioned, they have another purpose. This is like assault tactical UAVs. They use for the land forces. But in the Ukraine now, recently, it was Chief of Navy adopted new Navy strategy 2035, and we are restoring our capabilities. And priority number 1 is maritime domain awareness. And the UAV is one of the to reach this capability. We're also thinking about to obtain these UAVs for the same matters as Russians already did, and these UAVs will be capable to stay in certain sea area to provide monitoring of situation at sea and send respective information to our headquarters, to Maritime Operations Center in Odessa or any other areas which will be requested. And these UAVs will be also Ukraine built. because since 2014 we developed certain capability in this, also with our partners. And some of the UAVs will be provided by our partners as a military help.
Okay. Well, if we're speaking about monitoring of the Black Sea area by Russia, of course they will have an access and they will have an ability to monitor everything that will be happening with the foreign military ships that might be entering the Black Sea just for the observation of the area. We do know that at the beginning of August, the American destroyer entered the Black Sea for exercises with regional allies, and this is already the 6th time in a year that American ships entered the Black Sea for observing this situation. Also, we've heard about NATO ships' presence in the Black Sea. How can these unmanned vehicles threaten the presence of the foreign military ships as an observers in the Black Sea area?
Yeah, first of all, we request NATO and our partners to be present in the Black Sea in order to, I would say, to support us in our defending of national sovereignty. And they respond to this request, and since year to year, number of days which they spend in Black Sea increased. Secondly, in our modern era, there is a number of different tools how to collect information regarding entering to any ships in the Black Sea. I would say it's as soon as this big ship like Arleigh class destroyer enter into the straits, I would say it's visible and it's not a surprise actually. Another issue that Russians they quite close shadow in each of the vessels as soon as they came into Black Sea, and they follow this vessel until they will enter some respective territorial waters. In fact, recently they start to do the same with our ships. Recently we sent our Ukrainian Navy vessel to the auxiliary vessel to the Georgia port to participate in exercise Agile Spirit. We deployed there 100 our Marines, and they spent 2 weeks in Georgia. And all of the time when our vessel was going to Georgia and back, she was shadowed by Russian vessel. Yeah, idea, yeah, it's a project of power. They would like to keep control and in case of necessity probably, use this advantage for military purposes.
Well, let's touch on another aspect of this issue. I don't know where these retaliatory measures for any kind of other battleships present in the Black Sea, but in the end of July, the Russian military blocked 5 large areas, we remember, in the Black Sea. Those areas made up more than a quarter of the total area. They are blocked for 25 days under the pretext of military training. And these regions that are blocked include international shipping routes, as I mentioned in the introduction, to Bulgaria, Georgia, Romania, and Ukraine. So it looks like, to many experts that I interviewed, it looks like Russia is building a military base in Crimea, or building Crimea as a military base. Would you agree with that? And if yes, how threatening is it for Ukraine and the West?
Yeah, first of all, Crimea Peninsula, it's unsinkable aircraft carrier, and this name of this peninsula exists from actually Soviet times. And only reason why Russia would like to keep control over Crimea Peninsula, because this is like a fourth-generation area to project their power toward the Middle East and Mediterranean.
Right, because it's the closest geographically.
Yeah, it's the closest, and it's only, from other perspective, it's only harbor in Sevastopol, which doesn't have an ice during winter. And geographically, it's much better. It's not so windy like, for example, Novorossiysk. This area geographically very convenient for the base. But also mountains make certain benefits to put radars on the mountain and identify targets much in advance in comparison with the flat area like Novorossiysk or like in southern Ukraine we have, because maximum elevation may be 10, 50 meters. In Crimea, it can be kilometer over the sea level.
So it's practically easier to build a military base.
Yeah, that's the first aspect. Regarding these areas which was declared as dangerous for navigation or closed areas, I would like to say, first of all, that in accordance with the United Nations Convention Law of the Sea, which is a law in the Ukraine and Russia, all signatory of this United Nations Convention Law of the Sea, in accordance with Article 58 and 87, they must provide the freedom of navigation outside the territorial sea. It means no one can close this area for, I would say, forever. But in accordance with SOLAS, this is agreement which is directed to provide, to save life at sea in case of distress. It's really allowed to some of the nations to declare a certain area of dangerous for navigation or even close this. And there is a number of reasons why they can do it. But obviously it should be something behind, I would say, real activity. What we observe now, Russians, they really closing huge areas in Black Sea. And these areas, they are impacting international traffic routes, as you mentioned, but they do nothing or just very little.
They do not pose a threat.
Yeah, but they just do nothing, and merchant traffic need to evade these areas, and it's additional money and time.
Okay.
In accordance with the SOLAS, military vessels, Navy vessels, they can disregard this statement and go via these areas on own risk. But yeah, because but again, it's some kind of play, and I see that main reason for this just to provide extra economical cost for business which provide a certain activity with Ukraine or Georgia, as we see. Yeah, this is
to harden the process.
This is the reason. However, and the same, in fact, it's the same practice we can observe in Baltic Seas. The same practice. They close very big areas, doing nothing or very little, and all of the merchant ships need to go around. And this is, again, it's not a way how to play, I would say, to play business in civilized world.
Yeah, this tricky game to make this trade more complicated. Yeah, you mentioned the Baltics, and I was about to ask you the last questions because we ran out of time. We do know that Russian fleet became proactive not only in Crimea, but also in the Baltics, and as you mentioned, in the Arctic and in the Far East. So looking a bit wider, do you have any idea what does Russia prepare for?
Yeah, well, Russia again would like to restore its image as a superpower. They're not hiding it; it's open in the media. They would like to be superpower, but I would say if you see other nations which is actually play like superpowers, I mean, it's a combination of economical strength, I would say, military strength, political like image, or but in Russia tried to build this image only using military means, and we know that during Soviet Union happened the same, and we know what was the result. Because without economy, without technology, without open markets, I mean, nobody will succeed. I would say this really strategic goal to become a superpower, because in one day, actually, all your neighbors who provide you, who let you to run business, will say no. And we start to see it in 2014 when they occupied Crimea peninsula. It was not actually it was not like accepted by international society. And I mean, it was imposed number of sanctions, and sanctions really impacted them in obviously in their development of military capabilities. But again, I mean, we are military. We existing on the taxes, on economy, and if economy good, we also good. If economy not, we also not. But again, and it cannot be any exception from these rules. Russia was allowed by sorry to say, West to develop economy at the beginning of 2000 when they were welcomed in a club, economical club, and they were building a trade with the West. They were selling oil, gas, other raw materials. But later on, they directed all of the income to the military, and they start to scare half of the world.
That is true. They lost their spot, but a very troubling statement we can hear now from President Donald Trump welcoming Russia back to the G8 nations. But, well, let's hope that this superpower will stop affecting Ukraine eventually. And as a representative of Ukrainian Navy, I am wishing you best of luck and strength just to keep it positive and to have this story evolving with the happy end for Ukraine. Thank you so much for your interesting comments, and thank you for being a guest today. That was Captain Andriy Ryzhenko, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Ukrainian Navy for Euro-Atlantic integration. Thank you for watching Head to Head. I am Andriy Ryzhenko. Goodbye.